Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to week 51 of 2021. Now it's kind of interesting too. I'll just, go on a tiny little tangent. So one of the things that's weird is we know there's 52 weeks in a year, right? But those don't always line up equally with each other, right? So I realized that I'm probably going to have 53 weeks of the year because the week that I did as my first week of the year was there was still 3 days of December and then 4 days of January in it or something like that. So we're going to have leftover days, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that those will just roll into I'll do an end of the year and whatever few books I read the last of the year will just be included, and then I'll start with week 1 of 2022 with only January books. We'll see. I don't know. And it won't really matter. All the books will get talked about one way or the other. I might just have to label it something else for my own sanity. But anyway, this was another great week of rereads. Another vlog will be up or will be going up for that. Christmas is this coming Saturday, so surprise, surprise, you might not get that week's wrap up until maybe the Monday, because I am taking the Monday after Christmas off so that I have time to kind of wrap up some things for the year. And then I only have a 3-day week, and then I have another 3-day weekend. So it's kind of nice that the holidays both end up on Saturdays, because then I'm getting Friday off both times. Anyway, it's cool. I'm happy about it. It's going to be wonderful. So let's go ahead and dive in. I only have, I think, 11 books to talk about. Yes, I have 11 books to talk about, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to talk about those. And then I have a lot of videos to film today because I'm going to do my January TBR, which is going to have some fun announcements and all those great things. But first off, we do have a member shout out to get to. Zoe R joined at the Fated Friend level. So Zoe, thank you so much for joining channel memberships. That means so much to me. At the Fated Friend level, that means you get all the benefits that I have, which includes the monthly live hangouts which are just for Fated Friends. You get early access to all of my videos, which this time of year, there's usually quite a few early access videos to get to because I have end of the year stuff in there. You also get to answer in polls where I ask about which videos to do, as well as any behind the scenes announcements always go to my channel members first. But again, it is something that it's not a huge paywall in the fact that all of my content that you see, literally besides the live hangouts, is still available to you as a viewer of my channel. I never wanted to make my channel memberships you had to pay to get something from me. It's just for more access, basically, or early access if people like that, And as well as there's kind of priority in answering comments of members too, because you have the cool little member symbol by you. But anyway, that's enough of self-promotion, but I gotta plug it now and then. Just to keep things good. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, because with these weekly wrap-ups, which in my end of the year poll that I put out, 70% of people said that their weekly wrap-ups were their favorite video of mine. And that means so much to me, because when I stopped doing reading blogs, I was really worried people would be upset. But doing weekly wrap-ups was the only way that I found that I could talk about every book that I read with enough time to talk about the book. Doing monthly wrap-ups was nowhere near enough time. Doing bi-monthly wrap-ups or twice monthly wrap-ups just wasn't enough time. Literally doing weekly wrap-ups is the best way to tell you about every single book that I read. And I think that people have noticed that over time, because in my analytics, my weekly wrap-ups are consistently my most watched video, because I'm telling you about everything that I read. And I read, it's going to be 700 books this year. So, know where the gold is at. So anyway, okay, enough of that. Thank you, Zoe, for joining, as I said, and let's dive into these books because we have some rereads to talk about. Funnily enough, I have my boys right here. I have some of my Sophie Lark boys right here. These are the mugs that I've gotten. I have my Raylan mug and my Ivan mug because they're my two favorite of Sophie's Men, but there is someone else I'm going to have to add because it was very interesting. So I reread Broken Vow. I listened and annotated this, and honestly, I believe that this is my favorite Sophie Lark book. I just really do. There's something that I connect to with Riona, and I appreciate Raylan so much because he definitely is a dominant man, but and I wouldn't call him an alpha cinnamon roll either, because I wouldn't really call him a cinnamon roll, but he's still like, he's not the same intensity level of some of our mafia men are, because he has this beautiful line. And seriously, like, if I ever were to get a Sophie Lark tattoo, I'm highly, highly thinking about getting this one line that Raylan says to her, where when she is comparing herself to one of the wild horses that he's breaking at his family farm because they go stay with his family, she's like, you want to leash me up and control me. And she's kind of having a bit of a crisis because she's having feelings for him, and she promised herself, she made a vow to herself and to her sister Nessa that she would never fall in love, get married, and have kids. Like, she was just never going to do that route. So she actually gave her grandmother's engagement ring, which should have belonged to Riona, to her younger sister, because she's like, I'm never going to need that. I'm not going to find that. And so she's starting to feel very panicked. And Raylan says to her, he says, I want to unleash you. I want to set you free. I want you to become who you really are. I don't want to tie you down. And I just love that, because it doesn't mean that they don't both get enjoyment when he's taking control, when he's taking the reins. But by taking the reins in their sexual situation, he's not trying to dominate her in the, like, you are a woman, I'm above you type of way. It's more of like, let me share the burden. Let me help with decisions. Let me be your helpmeet. And so for me, this is an absolutely beautiful look at two very strong individuals and a woman who has tried to prove herself equal to men in a field where she is the oldest Griffin. Like, she's the oldest. And she's always felt overlooked because her brother, he's the one who's being trained to be the head of the family, still very misogynistic. Like, she does have loving parents, but she feels that the only way she can, like, make her stamp is to be a lawyer, be the one who can get them out of legal trouble and to keep their family, like, free of that. And it's not that the family doesn't need that. It's just that that's not her only value that she has. And through, like, Raylan really helps her to see that. And so this story was just, it's so beautiful to me. This is the fourth time I've read it. And, oh, it just means so much to me. I just loved it so much. And I'll have more to say in a minute, but I was pretty sure that by far this would be my favorite Sophie Lark. I was like, this is it. This is the one. And I used my rating scale, and it rated very highly, because there was just the character development and the relationship between them, and I couldn't put this book down because I just love the plot of this as well. I don't think I even said that. You should know by now, but in case you don't, I won't assume that every person's seen every video that I made. This is the 5th book in the Brutal Birthright series, and Raylan gets brought in to be her bodyguard because there is someone trying to kill Riona. She's the daughter of a mafia boss in Chicago, and he gets brought in to be her bodyguard. She's very resistant to it. She wants to stay away from him because she is, like, drawn into him, and she doesn't want that. She doesn't want connections. She has a boyfriend at the beginning of this, and she's happy with that boyfriend because he's not a threat to her heart. He's not a threat to a deeper connection. Like, she's on her way to having, you know, just keeping things that way. And I have someone who's there to see to my bodily pleasures, but our hearts are never gonna be involved. And Raylan, like, refuses that. Like, immediately when he's there, he's this, like, I wouldn't call him confrontational, but he's definitely challenging what she thinks she knows about relationships and what she thinks she knows about the connection of people. And he's there to make her break her vow. And I love that. I love that so much. And so through being her bodyguard, things get so heated. He almost loses her, and he not only doesn't want to fail this job, but he doesn't want, you know, her to die. So he's like, all right, I'm removing us from this situation. And he takes her to his family home in Tennessee, where they have a ranch, because he was raised like he's a cowboy. So this is a cowboy, bodyguard, ex-military, meets a mafia princess, but she's definitely a different kind of princess, you know, than like Nessa was from Stolen Heir. So yeah, this is fucking epic and I love it so much. Sorry, my hair was bothering me. I just re-dyed it last night, and so it's very poofy in the morning, so we had to clip it back because otherwise I'm going to be playing with it the whole time, and I don't want to do that because it's frustrating. So, all right, then, funny story. I decided to read Obsessed by Ivy Smoke. So, I think that this must not have been this year. I must have read those last year. But I actually have read the Hunted series, I believe is what it's called, by Ivy Smoke. And there's 7 books in the series. There's like 4 books in the original series, and then there's a sequel or spin-off series with the same couple a few years later that has 3 books in it. And it was a student-teacher, forbidden age gap. It was this 19-year-old and her professor, and it was that kind of series that I say this so lovingly, okay, because there's no shaming here. Every book is deserving. But it's that kind of series that's like soap opera trash, right? That you love it, but you're like, this doesn't really like do anything for me, but I also can't stop reading because it's so addicting. So I read all 7 of those books in probably like a week. I wouldn't say that I like really loved it. They were an average between a 3 and like a 4-star for me all the way through the series, but I liked it. And then I saw Ivy Smoke post on Instagram that Obsessed was taken down from Amazon. And so I was like, oh, what's happening with her book? Well, it turns out that Obsessed is the first book in a series where she's going to be telling the books from Hunter's point of view, the professor's point of view, which is always an interesting choice. And obviously it is a way to make money with, you know, retelling a story that's already yours, which I'm not calling that easy because she basically had to rewrite the book and then we get to see what's happening from his point of view. And it had been removed. I guess it got reported for a certain scene that happens in there, but it's funny because the scene already exists in the Hunted series because it's already in the heroine's point of view. But apparently the hero's point of view was so spicy, or for some reason it was getting flagged. So it was like on and off of Amazon, and I ended up grabbing it when it was on Kindle Unlimited. And I was like, well, I want to support her because I think that's stupid that it got removed for that reason. And then I was like, well, what the heck? I'll just read it and I'll rate it so that it's there. And I just wanted to throw something in between my rereads. So anyway, long story long, I read it and it was very spicy. I forgot how spicy this was, but again, it's not any spicier than all the other books that I read that are on KU. So it was very interesting that this was removed, and I'm sure that it just annoyed the wrong person. That's the thing with Amazon. There's no consistency about what gets banned and what stays. There's some books that are incest that are on Amazon and are KU, and then there's other books where if they have too spicy of a scene, then it can't be there. So anyway, but this was okay. It was 4 stars. It wasn't anything like special, but again, I remember being so addicted to this, but I am not going to read this whole series from his point of view when they come out. I'm not going to do that, because when I got to the end of this book and I remembered the kind of back and forth that they have, I'm like, I don't really read those kind of series anymore where they just can't get out of their own way and the miscommunications and the fighting is just so much. Like, to me, that's definitely indicative of a certain period of time in contemporary romances that I'm just not a fan of. Like, it reminds me of I'm not saying this with shade, but it reminds me of 50 Shades of Grey, and it reminds me of the Crossfire series, and it reminds me of, you know, those kind of series where it's a long series about the same couple, and the only angst that you can have is them fighting with each other the whole time. And that's just really draining to me. So this was 4 stars because it was very spicy. It was fun. And then I was done and I was like, yep, just one little tiptoe back into this and I'm good for a while. All right, then I reread The Darkest Temptation by Danielle Lowry. Wow, this was a ride. This was one of my early books of 2021 when I made my way through the Maid series, which she will have. Danielle Lowry hasn't had some books coming out in a while, but she has the 4th book in this will be out in 2022 sometimes, as well as some other books she's working on. But this one is a dark mafia book. This one is about Mila, who I think is only like 18 years old, and she has been raised as like a socialite. She's been very spoiled, but she wants to go to Russia to find out more about her mother and to find out more about her past, because her father has been very vague about where they're from. Like, she thinks her dad is just a businessman. She goes to Russia, meets a guy named Ronan, is very into him, wants to sleep with him, and then she becomes his captor. And it turns out she basically waltzed her way into his life. This is a man who wants revenge against her father for some evils that he's done to her. And she's literally walked herself there. She delivered herself on a silver platter, was already ready to sleep with him. And he didn't really have to do anything. You know, like, he does manipulate her a little bit of just how, like, nice he's being to her and just enough that bad boy edge that she wants to be with him. But she literally delivers herself and her body to his lap. He doesn't have to do much for it. So this is such an interesting character arc for her, because I forgot how annoying and stupid, just stupid Mila is in the beginning of this. She's almost too stupid to live. Like, she disregards anything. Like, she has a brother. She has this man that she is kind of have a flirtation with before, and like, she just ignores everything they say because she thinks that she knows better and she wants to find things out. Now, I will say too, like, her father hid this whole world from her, so she's lived a very naive and you know, privileged life compared to other mafia kids, compared to other places where the mafia is happening in the world. She definitely has had it easy, you know, and Ronan, he's one of those who had to come up scrapping, come up fighting for it. He's actually the brother of one of the characters in the other books. And so we get to see them show up. And yeah, so yeah, this is a captor-captive. There's some dubious consent, a little bit of non-consent in some areas, but for the most part, he like wants her to say yes. So there's some like coercive stuff, but yeah. But the character arc for both of them, for her to not be so naive, but also bringing a lightness and like a fresh perspective into Ronan's life. You know, like, she becomes more aware of what's going on, and he is able to like ease up a little bit. And watching them both fall under each other's spells, it was so great to reread this. Like, I forgot how compelling the writing was, and that's why I love doing rereads, because when I started my reread, I was like, wow, I gave this book 6 stars. What was I thinking? And by the end, I was like, oh yeah, because there's an amazing character arc for both of them. So then, okay, here we are. So then I reread The Bully, which I actually only needed to reread about half of this, because I had reread the first 2.5 Kingmaker books before The Spy came out. So I did pick this reread up where I was at, which was about halfway through. It was at the Christmas ball, if you know what I'm talking about. And I went from there. And so this is the second generation of The Brutal Birthright and the Underworld series. Where's, well, how do you point? Opposite. There we go. There's Ivan. This is Dean Yenin, who is the son of one mafia, and then Kat Romero, who is the like younger daughter of another mafia group, whatever. She's not from a family we really know much about at all, but her older sister is with Miles in book 2. So this is book 3, and he has some blackmail over her for some stuff that happened in the Rebel, and he is forcing her, but also makes a deal with her that if she is his slave for 1 month, he will never tell anyone what he knows. And granted, she has to trust him that that's the truth, but also, like, he's like, yeah, I just want to fuck with her, because he has it in his head too that, like, because she's Zoe's sister and Zoe's with Miles, and Miles is a cousin of Leo, who Leo is actually his cousin, that he'll just make everybody suffer by doing this, because Dean is a very hurt young man, okay? He sees the Chicago Mafia and all their kids and all their family as something that he should have had, and he feels that they've lived the life that he should have had. And because of the way things went down, he lived alone with his father, who's very bitter, scarred, angry man, whereas his cousins had loving parents, and he is bitter, and so he wants to hurt other people. And so he thinks he's just going to toy with his little kitty cat. And through the sexual experiences and the time that they spend together, they really start to transform each other. And it is, oh my gosh, if you want to talk about transformational sex and connection, like, I don't just want to call it sex. Like, the steam in this book, the exploration they come to with their bodies and with their, oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And the character arc, this one had a 10 out of 10 for character development, because just both of them, like Kat, she's a spy. We don't see a ton of the spy, because there's 4 different, like, houses, if you will, within the Kingmakers. Yes, this is reminiscent of Harry Potter, and none more so than this one, because Dean Yenin, he's the Draco Malfoy character that really Sophie was her first inspiration for doing this kind of story, and it's so amazing. So this book, as I just said earlier in this video, I thought Broken Vow was my favorite for sure. But when I was rating this in my scale, I was like, I think that this is just like 1 or 2 points below Broken Vow. Like, I really love everything she's doing with this. And you can just feel the passion that Sophie has for Dean and for redeeming his character in such a, like, believable way. Like, you see some of the shit that he's done in books 1 and 2, and you're like, there's no way that he can be redeemed and that I will believe it. And then it happens and you're like, I believe this. I believe this. This is also because of a mentor that we meet. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read these yet, but there's a mentor that Dean gets. And it's so wonderful, because I love when men mentor younger men, and when they are able to have an intimate, loving relationship that is a deep friendship and mentorship. It just lights me up. It makes me so happy. And we get to see that through this mentor character who gives him some tough advice, but treats him with respect and kindness is the way to say it, but it really is more of like, Dean would probably say it as a respect of like, I expect better from you, but I'm also going to help you through what you need help with, because I don't expect you to be perfect. You're a kid. So, it's so good. So when I rated this book, it's rated exactly the same as Broken Vow. So I did not find a favorite Sophie Lark. It's tied. And when I told Sophie this, I talk with Sophie maybe every other day. We just have a short interaction. And she was like, well, I guess I'll just have to write you a better one. And I was like, if you can write me a better man than either Raylan or Dean, I will worship at your feet. And that's why I said I need to add another man to my collection, because Dean definitely deserves a spot. So then I reread, oh, I keep forgetting about these. I reread Dead Man Walking by Giana Darling. This one didn't hold up quite as well for me, and you'll see that in my reading vlog I did about this. But this was my first 6-star book, basically, that I ever did, because it was the first read of 2021, and it was the first book that I gave 6 stars to, because it had just, Priest was one of the first psychopaths that I read. I think only, like, Carter is before him, but he's more of a sociopath, and anyway, he's literally, like, he is a psychopath. He is a killer for the fallen MC. He is their enforcer, and he enjoys pain and torture and dismemberment. And then we have Bia Lafayette, who is the daughter of, or is the sister of the mafia's, like, queen, basically. And she has had a thing for Priest since she was a teenager, and she really is seen as kind of this, like, virginal, beautiful, perfect woman, like, by everyone around her, and especially Priest, and he just sees her as too good for him, and she just is always searching out dangerous men. Like, that's literally the reason she'll be attracted to certain men, is because they're dangerous. And this time around, I just found that cliche as like, that's not a good enough reason, like, to say just because they're dangerous. Like, there's a guy in the beginning that she goes out with him because he seems perfect and that's what's expected of her. And then she finds out that he's dealing drugs and that he's not as perfect as she seems. And she's like, gets wet because of it. Literally, she finds out he's dealing drugs in a place where the fallen, like, you're not allowed to deal drugs in their area. And she literally gets wet because of it. And I'm like, that's just not quite a good enough reason for me, because you like nothing else about the guy except that he deals drugs and it gets you wet. I'm a little confused. But this was still very interesting. It's just something I'm coming to notice about Giana's books, is that they are very deep, and she really does like dive into the psychology of people and the way they're like that. And you see the backstory of both Bea and Priest and you understand, but also it can just be a lot. Like, it can be overwritten a lot in that way. And so the first time through a book of hers, when you're experiencing that for the first time, it can be really great. And then another time through it, it can be kind of like, okay, that was enough. So this one didn't rate as highly. The steam in this is definitely there. There is blood play, knife play, choking, spanking. Like, there's all the things in this. It's very sexy. So there's that for sure. Then I'll just talk about this one real quickly. I reread Annie's Song, which is about a deaf woman who her family doesn't know she's deaf. This takes place in 1890 in Oregon, and she gets raped by a young man. And then that young man's older brother, Alex, he offers to marry her and take care of the child. And everyone around her believes that she is touched or mentally deficient. There is, because this was written in 96, I believe, there are some terms for mentally handicapped people that will offend you. They're not said the whole way through this book, and they're usually said by, you know, they're not used in a derogatory term. That's just how they described things, but I do want to tell you that. This book is also going to be the Rake Appreciation Society pick for February, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but this was a reread for me. This was a 6-star book. This book just gutted me in so many ways, because Alex, he is absolutely horrified by what his brother did, and he doesn't want to see Annie mistreated because her family is going to put her basically in like private care until she has the baby, and then like get rid of the baby because they don't want, you know, like give the baby away because they don't want the world to know that they had a defective like grandbaby, or that she had been raped, because they don't want it to get around that people could do that to her, because she's very beautiful and they don't want her to just turn into someone who's abused that way. And Alex is like, but you'd be hiding her like something she did was wrong, and nothing she did was wrong. And so, yes, he offers to marry her and then take her to his home and have, you know, be taking care of her until the baby's there. And then he's supposed to give her back to her family. Like, she's just this person may pass around. And very quickly, Alex is like, that is wrong. Like, she's not some object that we can just pass back and forth. And has anyone tried to communicate with her and find out why she's like this? Why she was perfectly normal when she was 5, and then all of a sudden, after an illness, seemed that she was mentally handicapped. It can't be just like that. So this book is very emotional, very intense, but it's so beautiful to me, and I just love it so much. Then I reread Neon Gods by Katee Robert. I listened to the audio this time. It was very interesting because there was British actors reading this, which I saw some people on Goodreads didn't like. I actually did. I thought it made this more sophisticated than I was even expecting. I really liked the voice who did Hades. I had a great time rereading this one. It definitely wasn't as high on my list because like the emotional impact of this one doesn't quite hit me as well, but this book is a book that so deserves the hype, in my opinion. It's my favorite book that Katee Robert has written, except maybe Electric Idol, which is coming very soon. And yeah, I'm just very very excited that she's getting some amazing recognition for the books that she's written, and that she's taking advantage of her popularity right now and just really getting her books out there, because Katee Robert, I always get joy when I read her books. They are not always the most complex. They're not always original, but I always get joy when I read her books, and I think that that is just so important. And then once in a while, when you read one of those, they do hit you with, like, they do hit you in the gut, and I think that that's something this one can do. So this is a Hades and Persephone retelling. It's set in the modern world, kind of, and Olympus, and I loved it. This Hades is, there's also a BDSM relationship between them, but he's definitely a very, like, soft dom in a way, and Persephone is a brat in a way that I'd never read before. Like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Then I read Claimed by the Alien Warrior by Tiffany Roberts. If you didn't know, Tiffany and Robert are going to be on my channel on January 8th, I believe. And I haven't read all of their books, so I'm trying to squeeze some of them in, even though, you know, as you can tell, I'm doing a lot of rereads, and I have another secret project I'm working on, but I'm trying to squeeze their books in where I can. So Claimed by the Alien Warrior, this has a plus-size heroine who she has just dumped her boyfriend. She caught him cheating on her because he was just, like, bored with her. He doesn't appreciate her beautiful, luscious, curvy body, and so she dumps him, and she's going to, like, drive across the country and go stay with a friend. And an alien who has escaped a government facility where he's been, like, tortured and experimented on, he escapes in her vehicle and kind of takes her prisoner to get him back to his, like, spaceship, which is on the other side of the country. And so this is their romance together. This alien has 4 arms and a really nice dick, and that has some magical things going on. And yeah, it was really sweet. This was a 4-star read for me. I had a great time with it. Then I read a Christmas novella, a Christmas short story, if you will. I don't do many of those. I really don't. And this one was His Christmas List by T.L. Swan. And one of the reasons I was excited about this is I believe that this is going to be, like, she's going to add on to this story at different holidays. There's a couple authors I've seen that are doing this. I believe Dana Islay, who just did, like, Dipped in Holly, she's going to do that for, like, Valentine's Day and, like, other ones too. I think that's a great idea, because I don't love novellas. Specifically, I don't really love Christmas novellas. I just don't. People think that I'm weird, but novellas are never enough story for me. They just never are. I very rarely read them unless they're by authors that I absolutely love. So when I saw T.L. Swan put this one up, and it's actually connected with Ferreira, it's about Gabriel's like, executive assistant, or she, like, works with him, business partner, I'm not sure. And she's supposed to go to Alaska for this, like, meeting, and then there's a bunch of stuff that happens with their flight, blah, blah, blah. So she's supposed to drive from, like, Fairbanks to Anchorage or whatever, and she goes off the road, and then our hero, his name is Jack, he sees her and he takes her to his home, and they have a sexy time. It's only 66 pages, so that's why I'm like, if this is going to be where it gets added on to all the time, that'd be great, because there's just not enough in it. So it was 4 stars. It was definitely nice and steamy, and yeah, so there was that. Then I reread The Spy. Oh, I love this. I love this. There's never a lot I can say about The Spy that isn't a spoiler, and we're not going to do spoilers for this because this isn't the kind of video where I'm just going to blurt out everything. But this book really is the culmination of not just the first 3 books in the Kingmakers, but all of the Underworld and the Brutal Birthright. This book is the culmination of that, and it's so epic, and I love it so much, and it really, really makes me wish that Sophie was writing more in this world, even though this, like, story arc was so powerful. I want more. I want more. I want more. So this was a wonderful reread. Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. She's so talented. Then I read Tangled by Emma Chase. So I won't talk about this too much. We're going to keep steamrolling right along. But this is, I believe, Emma Chase's first book. That's what everyone said to me. That's what I believe that I see. And it's the first book. I think it's just called the Tangled series. And guys, I will tell you, it was impossible to get these books from my library. Like, I'm still on hold for 4 to 6 weeks for the rest of the books in this series. And I don't even know if I want to read them, but because the hold is like for it's going to be a while before I get them, I'm just leaving it there because I might want to read it by then. Like, Emma Chase is just such an interesting author to me because if I love her books, I really love them. Sustained and Sidebarred are 2 of my favorite books of hers. I love her Royally series, but this one was a bit much. So this is a like businessman and this woman Kate, who she has a fiance at the beginning of this. He had tried to pick her up at a bar the night before, but she said, "I'm engaged, I'm not going to sleep with you." And then it turns out she's a new person working at the firm or whatever, this like business firm or whatever the frick that it's called. And now he's like really mean to her because all of his sexual feelings, he's turned them into aggression, and he's a real dick to her and all that stuff. And there was a little bit of cheating going on in this because they definitely kissed a few times before her boyfriend breaks up with her. And then, or her fiance breaks up with her. And this is also one of hers where it's told completely from the hero's POV, which I really liked when it happened in Sustained. But in this one, it was like the first time she did it. And the amount of like fourth wall break where the hero is like talking to you was just, it was too much. And I didn't really like the story. The hero was an asshole. I can see how future heroes of hers were like the groundwork was laid in this one. So that's what I appreciate it for. But this was a 3-star book. I found myself skimming. I found myself really bored. And I just didn't love the hero at all. And when he ends up with the heroine, I just didn't know how I felt about it. Now, some more books in the series, we do revisit this couple. Like, we will get to have the heroine's point of view at one point. And we get to see his friend's love story, but it looks like most of the series focuses on this couple. And also, I don't know how I feel about that. As I just said earlier in this video, I don't love when we focus on one couple just to have them like be arguing the whole time. Like, I'm not a huge fan of internal conflict to that level. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, the other books are on hold. It could be a long time before I get them. So I might just leave them on hold, and if I want to read them when I get them, I will. Otherwise, I'll pass them on. And then the last book that I finished was Silent Lucidity by Tiffany Roberts. This is the first book in their Infinite City series, and this was another 4-star read for me. This one was, I really liked this one though, but the reason it wasn't 5 stars was that they're setting up a whole series with this. I think there's 4 or 5 books in this series, which I definitely want to read more of them. But there was just a lot of like extra stuff in this one. Like, this was a long book. I wanted us to keep moving, and there was a lot to like set up. So our heroine, she's a human. She was stolen from Earth. She's been kept as a slave for the last like 4 years. Luckily, and I say that with this, the aliens who are keeping her captive, they don't really see her as like, this is horrible, but they don't really see her as like a competent equal to them. So they haven't like raped her or assaulted her in that way, but she has been humiliated and beaten and treated like a slave in all other ways. So that doesn't make it better. But our hero, he is an alien who was biologically like messed with to make him a hunter. They tried to take his voice from him, but he fought it. So it is hard for him to speak because his voice has been damaged, but he's still able to speak. But that's partially why this is called Silent Lucidity, is it's very hard for him to talk. And his type of like alien, they have fated mates. And so he is sent to do a job to this club where our heroine is being made to perform by her owner. And he gets up on the stage and dances with her because literally his bond is like snapping into place with her. And so she gets, you know, her master like rips her off the stage and takes her home to punish her for daring to dance with this man who, he's the one who climbed on stage and started touching her and dancing with her. And then our hero, he literally like breaks her out and kills her master, kills a bunch of people working there, and like takes her. But she thinks he's like rescuing her, and really he's like, you're my mate, like you're supposed to be with me. So and she's like, I did not just get kidnapped to belong to someone else. Like, I'm not going to belong to you. And he's like, but I'm your mate. And so there's a lot of that. But this is very sexy. The sex scenes in this were, they were delicious. And I really loved our hero though, because he does come to realize that like, she needs, even though they are fated mates, like she needs to choose to be with him. Otherwise, she isn't with him of her own, she isn't with him of her own choice if he makes her be with him. And that's something that he has to come to grips with, because for him, like, well, you're my fated mate. Like, no one's going to be more perfect for you than me. We're supposed to be together. And she's like, wait, no, like, I want a choice. So there's that. So anyway, those were the 11 books that I read this week. I always still manage to talk forever, even when I don't read as many books. But yeah, this was week 51 of 2021. So that's crazy. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my new channel member for joining. If you're interested in channel memberships, you can check out the link down below to find out more. And yeah, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified when I upload, and I will see you next time.